25th February 2022 marks 1 year of the ceasefire agreement at the line of control here in Jammu and Kashmir. A lot has been happening in Kashmir specifically, both in terms of kinetic as well as non-kinetic operations. I have with me the GOC of the Chinar Corps, Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, to talk to us about what is happening in Kashmir, what is the ground situation, and what lies ahead. Welcome to the print, General Pandey.
Thank you.
So, how do you see the situation here in Kashmir on the ground?
In last, I'll say about 2 years, and definitely since ceasefire understanding as well, in last about a year, we have covered a lot of ground actually, in terms of security forces and security parameters. And then when I look at it, the issue of governance from the part of the UT government, in terms of development and other social matrices. The situation here in terms of security matters I'll speak to you about is that we have hardly had any stone pelting events. We have willy-nilly only some small little buns or protests have come out of strength of 25, 30 people, women coming out or people coming out requesting for some issues which are related to either electricity or water challenges or some like thing, and they are also very handful in number. When you look at the matters in terms of killings which have taken place of civilians, the terrorist initiated incidents or terrorist committed atrocities, those numbers have also dipped down drastically, even though there was a very concerted effort in the month of September, October to spike it. In spite of the spike which has taken place, we have seen that the numbers remain quite comparable to last about 5 years. This thing, but the plus which I find today is the voices which were silent for such a long time, which was speaking against a nexus, have started now emerging. And that's a great signature. In fact, you find the journalists now capable of writing things which are against the nexus and speaking out their mind, which is coming out. Finally, we see an element of democratic system now coming into play. You have youth which are coming out on the street to protest. You must have observed this event coming out like Akhir Kab Tak.
Yes.
So when a civilian is killed or a policeman is killed, you got young people who are coming out, debating, talking about it, that till when are these atrocities by the terrorist or their nexus is going to continue. These were things which are not happening. And the support mechanism which was given to the nexus to prompt them to carry out stone pelting and such like things was quite strong, and nobody was resisting that action. But today we see the positive parameters coming onto the trade and business in spite of the COVID pandemic. When I see, you imagine the record number of tourists have come in spite of the COVID pandemic, and all of them, in fact, except for few because foreign travel was banned, we found the domestic tourists coming and naturally enjoying the pleasures of Kashmir and seeing the scenic beauty here and traveling to this place. So all in all, I think it's been a great year, and we are actually looking to carry on forward with the similar parameters and maybe reduction in violence to take place in the next, that's in 2022. I think once Kashmir sees about these 3 to 4 such years in process, they will also, we will reach a critical mass wherein violence will not be accepted by the society here proactively.
Yes, sir, there's a lot of positive movement on the ground. You know, I visited the South Kashmir, I visited Northern Kashmir, interacted with the civilians there. But terrorism also continues to be a matter of concern. And in your estimates, sir, how many terrorists are operating here in South and the North Kashmir area? And also in terms of recruitment, what is the trend that you're seeing as far as the recruitment is concerned? And of the terrorists who are present, how many are actually local terrorists and how many are PTs, Pakistani terrorists?
Okay, the numbers when we started from last year from 250 have now come down to about 160, 165. That includes the recruitment and infiltration both from the LC from 15 Corps Zone and from elsewhere who have sneaked into the valley. So that is about the number. But most interesting part is the reduction in number of recruits. And as compared to last couple of years, the numbers have been about 40 lesser. In 2021, we had about 40 lesser local recruits. But when I analyze the kind of recruitment which is taking place, a very interesting thing which emerges is that you don't find now educated, empowered youth joining the terrorist rank, which was a wave which came about somewhere about in 16, 17, 18. That has ebbed actually. Now they are not finding, the recruiters are not finding young men to join the terrorist ranks. So they have started now reaching out to teens and
Teenagers.
And the teenagers are in the age bracket of about 15, 16, 17, in which they find them as vulnerable. In that also, they are smart enough to identify teen who have got certain problems in the family front, whose parents, whose father or uncle or a near dear one was a terrorist, was neutralized, or was involved or is involved in the issue of drugs, glamour, and such like things. So there is a very careful selection not taking place because they are not finding youth at large willing to pick up a weapon. And that is a challenge which we have to now look at. So while we have been able to expose in this entire process the functioning of white-collar terrorists who were actually poaching onto the youth to make them terrorist recruits, the senior lot of youth in Kashmir have understood it. But the younger lot, we have to now start addressing that they should not be taken astray. But more importantly, the positive which has come to us is that the families have started understanding this whole game plan. And they are reaching out to us proactively to take out the kids, either youth or the teenagers, from the environment to protect them from becoming terrorists. So if you see last year, the number of apprehensions have increased. Similarly, a large number of kids have been taken out from the UT by the police and by security forces and others outside the Kashmir Valley itself to ensure that they are not converted to becoming a terrorist. So this is a very great positive movement.
Absolutely, sir. And you mentioned a very critical term, white collar terrorist. Now, terrorist, for viewers, terrorist is a terrorist. What is a white collar terrorist? It's a term that you've brought into the narrative, and now people are talking about a difference between terrorist, a regular terrorist, and a white collar terrorist. Also, another thing that you often speak about is dividing terror from terrorism or ism. If you could explain to our viewers, what is that?
Okay, I'll first highlight this aspect of terrorism. For many years, people have mixed the terrorist and ism part, and they've just given a word called terrorism. It is very easy to neutralize, kill, isolate, take him out of circulation, a terrorist. But the aspect of ism, which is much more enduring, remains in the society for a long time, which is run by a nexus, leadership, prominent people, citizens of society, which drives the numbers to go towards becoming terrorists. And therefore, in long term, to have peace coming about, we need to work on this ism aspect, which is basically radicalization. It may be through running a conflict economy, through drugs, through education which is flawed, or leaning towards radicalization. These are the issues which require to be targeted. It is a whole of government approach in which security forces also play a very, very important role.
Absolutely.
To enable all this. So for long, we felt that this was not a task. But I think for ism to be controlled, it is very important that, especially, I got company commanders who are young soldiers who are spread all across the entire valley, who have also started understanding this difference between terrorist and ism. They also understand that killing a terrorist is much more easy, and we will be able to entrap him. They got a life of few weeks to about couple of months. But they have also started now focusing on ism, and they reach out to the local population, explain to them what is happening and how they need to read the signs that why a child is going astray, and therefore they need to bring him back to the society and to a normal life. So all those things are paying dividends. So if you don't actually identify the correct disease and the malaise, and you're only going to treat the symptom, which is the terrorist, I think we'll never succeed. So that was first step we took. Towards ism part, the main culprit, when we banded everyone together as an OGW or overground workers, we started talking of a small time act player in terms of carrying drug from one place to another, money from payment of money or transporting money, warlike stores, or moving of a terrorist from one place to another. But a very critical segment, which was white collar terrorists, which I can kill one terrorist, but these white collar terrorists were the terrorist factories. They were the ones who are responsible to actually identify which youth is fitting the bill of becoming a terrorist. And thereafter, they will poach on to him, isolate, radicalize, and thereafter, under the control of the masters from across, they will ensure there is a weapon which is given into his hand. So while the security forces went gunning for this terrorist and he was neutralized, but nobody was paying any attention towards the white collar terrorist. And this gentleman or this lady sitting in as a prominent established member of a society was actually poaching on that very society to make their near dear ones, the youth, into a terrorist. And their people, their own family members of this white collar terrorist were getting good education, more prominence, government jobs. They were doing great businesses. They got houses all over the place, even across Pir Panjal into the rest of the country. In this, a very critical component was also of the diaspora, which is spread across in outside the country. Majority of them have even not set their foot even once in Kashmir, and they were using the social media domain to actually reach out, radicalize, draw false narrative of victimhood and such like stuff under the pay and guidance of somebody from across. So all these people had to be banded, identified, targeted, and the youth told, exposed to these realities. And that is what I'm saying, that once you started speaking about them, then the youth and the family and the parents, and particularly the middle class and the lower middle class, has now started understanding the game plan. And they have started having this voice. Till the time they were not aware of it, they were quiet. Now you will find on a social media domain, when the diaspora gets together under tutelage and control of the powers who are on the other side to fight, create a story, a large number of youth from Kashmir sits on the social media and contest that narrative. That's a great change. And that is why one coined this term of white collar terrorist and distinguished between terrorist and ism part.
Ism part. So coming to the LOC, the ceasefire agreement is in place, has been in place for 1 year, except for I think 2 or 3 incidents which were localized. Ceasefire has largely stayed. How do you look at the ceasefire, sir?
Yeah, as a soldier and as a general who is in Kashmir Valley, I am quite glad for the ceasefire understanding to have happened, particularly for the Kashmiri people or people from Jammu and Kashmir who were resident of the border areas. They were deliberately targeted by the Pakistanis. They were hit into their villages. They had suffered casualties. They did not have a very daily routine, which is a benefit which is given to the rest of the citizens of the country. This last 1 year has been great for them. Their children are, in spite of the COVID, they are able to go out to their schools, colleges. They are able to run their businesses. They are able to tend to their farms, orchards, take out their animals out to the field, and they are living a great life. I think it's a great positive. I hope that the compulsions for which the ceasefire understanding was achieved by, was requested for by the Pakistanis remains, and they continue to follow this path of ensuring the ceasefire understanding for our people. Otherwise, in case there's a violation which is there, we are well prepared to respond as was being done earlier.
So when you say compulsions, what were those compulsions?
Well, you are well educated yourself. You will understand everything. There were compulsions of internal economy going astray, which continues to go on a downturn, onto a downtrend. They got challenges on their respective in the western borders. They got major political challenges within the country. They were under a very great check by various institutions which are looking at them for terror support infrastructure, which was ongoing. All those were compulsions which forced them. Plus, of course, in about 2019, 18, those ceasefire exchanges had resulted in massive damages and casualties to them. That also contributed to the entire construct, which ensured that they had to reach out for this ceasefire understanding.
So, ahead, the launch pads seems to be full. The inputs are that about there are about 100 or 130 odd terrorists at launch pads. Infiltration has not taken place in the last 2 to 3 months. Of course, attempts were made in the month of August, July, and all. But how do you see the road ahead? And also, sir, is what about the possibility of Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists who fought in Afghanistan along with the Taliban, trying to find their way into Jammu and Kashmir?
Why are we worried about anybody else? For us, as a counter-infiltration grid, anybody who is going to attempt to cross will be taken care of. So he may be Pakistani, he may be a local, he may be anybody. We don't care. We don't distinguish between the control it has. We have got a counter-infiltration grid which is in place, and any attempt to be made will be neutralized. That is the direction. That is instruction. We don't have to look at any other stuff. There are attempts. There will be made attempts until unless the orientation across changes. That is yet to take place. And I think we need to be vigilant all the time. And I can assure you that all efforts of infiltration will be eliminated. In case they are far distant observed, they may be foiled. And any leakers, any sneakers who come inside will be neutralized in the hinterland. Today, we don't have to rely on technical intelligence. The human end part, because of local, the Kashmiri people have realized what is happening. We are getting a great amount of human intelligence. And I'm sure anybody who comes from the other side on this side will be taken care of.
Well, that was a very confident Chinar Corps Commander, Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, telling us about the situation here in Kashmir as well as the LOC. But remember that one of the main things that he mentioned was the fact that there is a difference between terror and ism of the terrorism. This is Snehesh Alex Philip signing off with video journalist Urjita Bharadwaj from here in Srinagar for ThePrint.